So, welcome everybody. This is episode 13 of our second series of life change transformation. And in today's episode, we are exploring that great question of is balance BS, right? And we definitely take a perspective on that. I'm Maeve Langford. I'm your host from Cork in Ireland, where I work as a transformational coach. And joining me here is Gary Benoit, my amazing partner in this podcast collaboration. And Gary is a retired police officer. He is an author and a speaker. He wrote the book A Call for Service, and he's licensed in the financial industry and making a massive impact there. So, Gary, as always, so amazing to have you with me here together
As always, yes.
online, all the way from Alberta, Canada.
It's fantastic. It's great to be here. Like I say, I'm excited about this episode. I'm excited for the this whole concept because oftentimes I hear people say to me, balance is just BS. Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that there's definitely some conversation to be had around that. And I think there's perspective change. Just a bit of a flip of that would really create some additional harmony in your life as we were talking earlier, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think we probably both would say we've had times in our lives where we did not feel we had balance and that probably subscribed to the it's all BS concept. But you shared a great metaphor earlier
Mhm.
with me, Gary, when we were getting ready for today's call. So what would you say to people in terms of what it means for you now and
Yeah,
how you create that balance
for
in your
sure.
life?
So when I first got involved in understanding about mindset and learning how to create different results in my life and really transforming the life that I was living, um, I was introduced to a couple of mentors. One was named Dave. The other one was Troy. So Troy Amdahl and Dave Braun. They're both doctors and chiropractors in the United States. They started something called Oola. And their idea around Oola was that feeling of oola la, that amazing feeling. That's where it kind of stems from. And
Yeah.
they created this system where he says, you create balance in seven F's of your life. And the F's are fitness, finance, family, field, faith, friends, and fun. And so when I looked at those, when I was first introduced to this concept, I had the idea that balance was kind of garbage. I didn't think it was something you could have in your life. And I was listening to them, deliver their message. I never thought about life either in those areas. Like I never had an idea about what I do for fun or is faith a part of my life and what does it look like for me and how do I lean into faith and I set goals in my business and I set goals in my fitness and in my money, like the financial side of things. You'd set goals there because you want to have an abundance that way. But I never thought
Yeah.
about it in another way, right? So I'm like, well, in those other areas. I'm like, I never thought about my friends or how my family was doing. I never considered that. And when I looked at it and they were talking about it, so the metaphor they gave was if you've been in, kind of like a circus and you are watching the performers, and there's one particular performer that has these seven sticks, right, that are all planted in on the stage, and he gets there and he takes these plates and he starts to spin the plates, right? So he spins the first plate on the stick, and then he gets the second plate, he spins the second plate, and the third plate, and he gets to the fourth plate and he spins that fourth plate, but he has to go back and just touch the first couple plates to make sure they continue to spin and then he goes up to the fifth plate, the sixth plate. He goes back and touches the second and the third one and the first one. And then he goes back to the seventh one. And now he's going around, he's just touching the plates every so often to make them continue to spin.
Yeah.
So those seven plates are like the metaphor for your seven areas of life, essentially, right? So we're not talking about like spending 3.45 hours every day to balance your life out exactly by those hours in the day. It doesn't work like that, but it's more the fact that your life is going to continue to spin, right? You're going to have life. It's going to continue to do your things. But if you don't touch the touch points that are important in your life, like your fitness and your faith or your relationships or your money, time, money, freedom, you can't let it crash because if it crashes, now you're in crisis,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that because to me, I'd never heard that metaphor before, or I'd forgotten it if I had. And to me, it's just like you can be having the results, right? And you're
Mhm.
having the outputs in terms of experiences or, satisfaction with your health, with your fitness, but they're not all requiring the same effort all at the
Hmm.
same time, right? And we know oftentimes they say that it's like that effort to get something off the ground day one. It takes, it takes a lot of consistency and a lot of mental energy initially to get it going. But then once it's up and running, it's got its own rhythm and momentum. And
Correct.
I can speak to that 100% from my experience of getting ready for the 2K swim, right? When I was doing that a couple of years ago, like the organization and the efforts that got in, initially to build that up took a bit of time, but in the end it was like, the wetsuit was always where I needed it to be. The
Hmm.
bag was in the hall. I just needed to grab it and go, and it was in my diary, and I didn't even have to think about it.
Right.
So I think that's a great way to talk about it
Hmm.
in terms of like it's not 2 hours on this topic and 2 hours on that area of my life and 2 hours, on healthy eating and 2 hours on whatever else it is. I mean, that will wear any of us out, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
maybe that's where people are coming from when they think it's all BS.
For
But
sure.
just that idea that, just the synergy and the harmony across all of them and just, a little tweak here and then a little bit more effort to get that one going
Hmm.
or get it back on track and just, yeah, I love it. I have to
Hmm.
say, I love it as a metaphor.
And I think that when you really consider it, like when I kind of get the idea that people think, well, that there's no way I can balance my life. It's just too busy, or it's just too this, or it's just too that. And that's often the conditions speaking to you, right? That's the conditions
Hmm.
that you're facing in that moment. And I think if you have an idea that you would love to have more harmony, I'm going to use the word harmony now. We talk about harmony, and it's like balance and harmony, kind of the same thing. If you think about those plates, by them spinning and being spinning on the sticks, as long as you're touching them every so often, they're going to continue to have that momentum, that spinning, that harmony
Yeah.
in balance on the stick.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea of having that harmony, if you would love that part of it, then absolutely you can achieve it. I know since I was introduced to this idea and I was willing to understand or at least let it sink into my mind and just can even consider it. Right. I had that willingness to just to consider that transformational change because it really does transform your life if you
Yeah.
really consider what that looks like. And that's what this podcast really is focused on. It's about life. It's challenging the thoughts of the common hour, right? The idea that balance is crap, and the idea that actually, if I really would love it, I think I can achieve it, right? So to be able to transform that, so life change transformation, right? We can change how we think, how we see it, and even if it's a small change in the beginning. And when I first it was introduced to it, I thought this is impossible. It's going to be impossible for me to do this. And I had that feeling of like, well, that effort. You talk about effort, right?
Hmm.
The first little while, it was a lot of heavy lifting, it felt like,
Yeah.
right? Because some of them I already had sort of in place, but I wasn't doing it very effectively. And so I had to do more effectively. And then I had to really look at the other areas and really consider what that meant, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, right now we talk about four quadrants. We talk about our health quadrant, which is our fitness and all that stuff's kind of in that health quadrant. We also talk about the relationship quadrant, which is our family and our friends and our career or vocation quadrant. And then we also have our time, money, freedom, right? So those are the four quadrants, and those four quadrants encompass all those seven areas,
Yes.
right? So like it's all in those four areas. So if four is easier for you to kind of get your head around, then use the four, right?
Yes. I use the four.
Right. I have great appreciation for both. And I still love the seven of them in my mind. I don't necessarily always go there. I do use the four when I set my goals, but um, I never forget about a faith piece or I never forget about, I always have that in the back of my mind. But it takes a lot to lift off the ground because I had
Yeah.
that. I always thought that way too. I thought balance is crap. There's no way I can do this. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And
But
what were some of the first steps for you, Gary?
really, it was just understanding that I can set a goal in each one of those areas.
Yeah.
So um, I had never considered having a friendship goal. Like, like truthfully, like I've never thought about a faith goal. What does that even mean? So for
Yeah.
me, it was gratitude, really leaning into gratitude. So faith and gratitude for me go hand in hand. So I really like, okay, I can do gratitude every day. I can find a way. So that was where I started with faith, was in gratitude.
Yeah.
In my friendships, I just was like, did an evaluation, right? What kind of friends do I have? And really ask the question, are they lifting me up or bringing me down? Right?
Yeah. Good man.
Because some of them were tearing me down or bringing me down. And
Hmm.
then that was probably one of the harder ones because you're 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 surrounded with these people. At least I was at the time, most of the time on my days off. And so then I had to really figure out, how do I separate myself if they're not right? How do I do that in a way that feels good?
Mm.
That I'm not going to burn the bridge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what I realized about the friend side of things is that if soon as I started to do things differently, that separation happened naturally anyway, because
Exactly.
they didn't change.
Yeah, and
I
because you
changed.
weren't a match for each other anymore, right?
Right.
You were on different vibrations. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
that's where I started with us. Just like that first idea that I can have a goal here, I can have a goal there. And I just could sort of, what do I do
Yeah.
for fun? I picked my guitar back up after so many
Yeah.
years of not playing the guitar. Right. So like stuff
Yeah.
like that, where I just took the opportunities when I saw them. Like I was always on my mind was always tuned to what could I do, new opportunities that showed up in those different areas. And
Yeah.
I had joined a new group of people at work at the time, a new squad, and I just was the sergeant there. And I was looking to build a good team environment, and in the same time as I was doing all this stuff with my life and trying to figure out the seven different areas. And one of the areas was fun, and the guitar. I hadn't played the guitar for like 15 years. I had the guitar in my house for 15 years. It was sitting there just collecting dust. And one of the guys in the crew was a very good musician. And I joked with him one day. I said, I'll come over and I'll hack on a guitar while you play. I said, I can do that. And he's like, yeah, sure. Come on over. We'll do that. And I didn't think he would want to because I didn't play very well at the time.
Hmm.
And that morphed into something that we did almost every week.
Wow.
And that created a relationship with him. And that created a different group dynamic overall, which
Yeah.
was really, really fun. Right. So, and now it's
Yeah.
turned into a place where I love playing the guitar now. I play every week anyway, every day, almost every day. And touch the guitar at least for 10 minutes a day anyway, right?
Yeah.
If I get time. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things where if you're open to it, I think things will present
Yeah.
themselves.
And I think a huge part of this is really being intentional, right? Um, for me, I suppose one of the big areas for me was that work-life balance piece. And, you know, for many, many years in my previous role, I was part-time, right? I worked 3 days a week. And most people who would look at me would kind of say, oh my God, she's so lucky. Like she's got a senior role, but she's part-time. Still very hard to achieve for a lot of women or parents, men who want it. Um, and I never felt the harmony, right? I
Interesting.
when I was at work, I still felt like I should be at home. When I was at home, I was worried about, that all the other managers were full time. For some of it, I had a job share partner, but for a lot of it, I was on a 3 day week and everybody else was on a 5 day week. And I was like, oh, I'm not able to keep up or, I'm falling behind. And like, this is the thing. It's not always about the facts of our experience, right? Arguably, I had balance in terms of I was just doing a 3 day week, but my experience of that was still like my whole life was out of whack, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to do, again, we come back to this time and time again. It's just expressed in different ways in terms of our experience, but it's not about the conditions, right?
Exactly.
You would, in that instance, arguably, you could have said my conditions were good,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't feeling it, right? And the other place where it really came up for me was having gone out on my own in business and the early years getting it off the ground were kind of tough, but I was so happy I was at home and there was space there. But then COVID hit and there was a year or two of just like throwing everything at it and the pivoting we all did to go online. I
Yes.
mean, here we are on Zoom now and it's like second nature to us, but it
Correct.
wasn't it wasn't then, not for me.
Not for me either.
And yeah, and I got to the end of, 2 years of COVID. I'd done really well. I'd had the business award. I expanded the business. All of that was great, but it was definitely out of whack in terms of hours.
Hmm.
And I remember, I think it was coming into 2021 or 22, and my big goal was to reduce the work hours, right, and to reclaim my evenings and reclaim my weekends. And it started in New Year, kind of January intention. And Gary, I set the intention I was to close my computer, and it was a laptop at the time. So just closing the laptop by 6 o'clock in the evening, seven at the absolute latest. And I used to feel a physical pain in my chest every time I closed the
Yeah.
laptop. And
Yeah.
I am, and I remember about a month in, and I was still saying that I feel this pain in my chest. And my coach said to me, maybe that's gone on a while. Maybe you should just check it out, like just in case.
Right.
And the minute she said it, I thought, no, I don't, I know what it is. It's just that anxiety
Hmm.
that's coming from doing something new and different. So what we talked about, that heavy lifting when I'm changing a habit in the first instance and just doing it anyway,
Right.
right? And being consistent, being persistent, doing the thing that I want. And the big thing I would share for all of you listening today is that if it's a time thing, right, and you want to take time away from work and create space, you have to really know what you're putting into that space instead.
You know what?
So
That's so true. Isn't that also the truest thing? If you take something out of your calendar, you better put something back in that space because you're going to fill it.
exactly. Exactly. So whether that's, I mean, for me, it was I took up crochet, I was doing my swimming lessons, I was trying to meet with my girlfriends more frequently, I was doing Pilates in the evening. So I had to have all those things slotted in so that I didn't just default back to the work,
Right.
right? And to
Yeah.
this day, I still have to do that, right? If I that old pattern, I grew up in a self-employed household. We ran the village shop,
Hmm.
so like
Hmm.
that shop was open into the evening, 6 nights a week. It was open on Sundays. So the default is to just go and do another bit of work, right? And I'm happy doing that a lot of the time. So it's easy for me to do that, but it's not how I want to live my life.
Right.
So having those alternatives in place that bring the harmony, that give you more balance, that make you feel like, the relationships and the health and the time freedom are getting more attention. We have to be really intentional about that.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And we
It,
talked about diaries and calendars,
for
right? A
sure. For
while
sure.
back. So use it to manage your time and protect your time.
Right. I just want to, I want to preface that this idea of the talk about balance is timely in the seasons as well. Because right now we're
Mm-hmm.
coming into spring. First day of spring is March 20th. And the spring um, equinox is when there's this equal amount of sunlight and darkness essentially in that transition period, moving towards longer summer kind of days, right? And,
Exactly.
and so it's that equilibrium between the dark and light or the yin yang, whatever you want to call it, right? That whole idea of
Mm-hmm.
balance inside of the two
Yeah.
hemispheres everywhere in the planet kind of gets the same. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of a neat concept. And when you think about that from our life perspective, like we're always growing, we're always, we should be anyway, striving to change or not change, but just
Mm-hmm.
like improve the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
But really, it's about the flow of your life,
Yeah.
right? It's about the flow of your life. What would you, like, kind of come back to that question though? What would you love to see your life look like, right? And
Yeah.
like, it's not about what you believe is possible. We've talked about our conditions in the past. We've talked about what that means, but it's really important to come back to the idea that we default to our conditions. I love when you talk about, I will be super happy just to go. I could open my laptop back up, and I could be totally cool with doing extra work for till in the evening. I would be totally cool with that. And I think that is such an interesting comment. And the reason why I said is because is that we have a way of doing things anyway. And that's really comfortable for you to get back into your
Habits.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's really
Familiar.
comfortable for you. It's comfort, right? And to not do that, to have that discomfort of like, oh, I'm gonna close my computer. I'm not well, you're right. Ideally, having that replacement is really neat, right? And I think that's such a great for all of us to really reflect on what habit or what comfort level do we operate at. If you're a business owner, is it just, well, I'll just do one more thing or I'll send that one more email? Because you know what one more email does? One more email leads to two more emails. And then next thing you know, you're doing something else. The next thing you do, it's 3 hours later and it's 9 o'clock at night. You're like, oh, I just worked all evening.
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Because that's comfort, right? And so,
Yes.
and if you would
Yes.
love something different, then just really get curious about that in yourself and know that you can have the different, the time away or the fun time or the visiting time or the quality time with your family, whatever that looks like. You can have that and still have all the success in your business,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
The longer, harder, faster doesn't necessarily, it can bring some results. But if you're doing it the way it feels really good to you and you love the idea of having that, okay, I want to work 6 hours today and I'm going to take the rest of the time and do whatever, that can bring just as much success, if not more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I've learned that the hard way as well, that, rested horses win races, right? You have to take the breaks, and you do actually have to have some harmony and balance in there, because when, like, any strength that's overplayed becomes a weakness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, on one level, you could, for many of us maybe who are self-employed, or, you're doing well in your career, we've maybe gotten to some of that success through that longer, harder, faster. We're willing to do the work, we're willing to do the grafting. But if you keep going like that, you just burn out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't rely on that. You can't rely on that to keep you going. You have to
Right.
recharge the batteries. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
And when you talk about
I,
balance, sorry, when we talk about balance too, we talk about think about the idea of like just being more intentional with your day to day. I think can be
yeah.
a real positive. But you know, often if I think about my month, I look at it from a monthly standpoint. I don't necessarily look at daily because daily is that's pretty narrow focus, like on a daily. But
Yes.
if I look at it from a monthly standpoint, I'm actually pretty balanced. Now
Yeah.
I live a very balanced, harmonious lifestyle,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? From that
And
perspective.
I think that's a great reminder for all of us today as well, that it's like, some days might be really hectic, right? And
Hmm.
other days might be just, lovely, slow burn, and plenty of time and energy for everything. And it's not in any given day in terms of, am I getting it right? Am I getting it wrong? But overall, over a week or over a month, does it feel good? And I think also just allowing ourselves, like, if you've anybody listening today, if you've got a big project that you're getting off the ground, or or something that you're trying to get over the line and finish it, or if there's somebody, a loved one who's sick, or a family member that you're having to step up and provide more support or care for at the moment, to be okay with that. Like that there's going to be a bit of, overgiving or feeling tired, or, that the days are longer to do and achieve some of those things. And that's okay when it's for short bursts of time, and to not fight that or not make that wrong. But, and again, always just taking the learning and the feedback from the experience, like, do I love this, and do I want more of this, or do I want less of this, and knowing that that feedback is there every day. And we don't change our lives every day, but we're noticing the patterns, right? And, oh, I'm overdoing it there. Like the COVID thing for me, that went on for several months, right? And it was kind of like, okay, I'm not loving this anymore.
Hmm.
For a while, it was great. It was exciting. And I knew I was serving and meeting a need. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, this isn't sustainable. I'm not liking this. So what am I going to do differently? So it's
Hmm.
really, I think, paying attention, not just to, you know, individual unique experiences or moments, but like, what are the patterns here? And
Hmm.
am I loving these
Hmm.
patterns? And if not, what do I want to do differently? And I think even as you're saying, Gary, you've got good balance or harmony in your life at the moment.
Hmm.
At the same time, I assume, I'm going to take a chance here and say this, but I assume you're kind of keeping an eye on it all the time, and it probably does go a little
Absolutely.
bit too much that way, and then it's like a little bit
Hmm.
back this way. And
Yep.
if you think of the balancing thing, in a way, it is up and down and up and down. It's not stasis,
No, no.
but a
It's not
little
like
bit of movement in all of it.
yeah, for sure. Not like we're in cement where I get to a middle point and bang, I'm steady right
Yeah.
across them. It doesn't work like that. Like it's much like a
No.
teeter-totter where you have that, that up and down, back and that kind of ebb and flow of up and downs of more here at different times. And like, we're moving into a couple months coming up here now, March and April for us, where we're going to be, um, when I look at the calendar and look at what we have planned on that's scheduled and the things that we're going to be doing, it really does put us into like the month of March is going to be very business heavy, kind of lots of focus on getting an office up and running, and we're opening a new location in Saskatchewan, and we're just kind of like putting energy into that and getting things ready to go there and continuing to build that business pipeline and create the and bring people on board into our team and grow the team. That's the next focus for March. So it's going to be I would say it's going to be more heavy on that side of it for the next month or so.
Yeah.
And then in
Yeah.
April, we'll still do our business pieces, but we're going to be on the road. We're going to be, traveling to the US and doing some mentorship down in a few different places in the US and into LA. And then we're going to be coming back. So that whole, with that, so that's going to be a little more free time, maybe not so much
Yeah.
work, right? So like it'll be a bit of
Road
a
trip.
right bit of a road trip, and so that
Yeah.
part of it is really interesting because and we're planning a move. We're moving out of Edmonton. We're moving to Calgary, which is just south of here, a couple hours, but in the same province. But ultimately, that too then creates different things that you're going to be focusing on in the next little while. So just know, you
Exactly.
guys, that this is not like I look at the 7 areas of life. Like I'm not perfect. I don't, I, in doing my 2 hours of fitness every day. Like every other day is a gym day for me. And those kinds of things. I'm still doing those things and still in the calendar because it's in that time spot that I would use for other stuff,
Yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, it's very much an ebb and flow. There's no like static. I'm balanced 100% all the time. Doesn't work like that.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just want to say for people listening today, like if you're listening and you're thinking like sounds like those two have got it kind of right, or they're further along in this journey than me, and life just looks a bit chaotic. I want to share. I wrote a blog on this ages ago, and I just pulled it up earlier. And there's an English historian named Dame Cecily Veronica Wedgwood, a wonderful, wonderful name. But she said, discontents and disorder are signs of energy and hope, not despair.
Mhm.
So really inviting for all of us, we're all got something that we want to change, and
Absolutely.
it's some area of our lives where we would love a bit more balance and it's feeling a bit out of control. And just remind ourselves that the discontents and the disorder within all of that, they are signs of energy and hope, right? And it's
Absolutely.
life saying to you, pay attention. Like we need to change some of this here.
Right.
But it's inviting the change because life knows it can be better, right?
Right. I think that's really, really cool. Yeah, that's really important. I think, everybody that's on this is listening to this, is listening to us have this conversation. Hopefully, there's a bunch of stuff that's in here that you guys can take with you.
Yeah.
And even if it's taking the analogy and just kind of visualizing it from your own life, what does that look like? How many plates are you spinning, and what does it look like, and how do you manage it? Um, but the idea, guys, is that we are going to have the discontents and the longings. They show up anyway as we grow, right? Like once again, we're doing this with you guys. This is a journey together. Like truthfully, a journey together. Like we're not. I'm not sitting here explaining this and teaching it down and throwing it out to you like a professor. Or this is a journey in this together because life is going to continue to grow inside of us. We're going to have different wants and expressions and different ideas, and we're doing this together. And we're not perfect at this. Like we work at this every day.
Yeah.
It's an everyday thing that we work at, and we, Maeve and I have both had more time in the work inside the mindset and inside the growth and the transformation stuff, but we still have moments where it's like, oh, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Right? Where did that come from?
And sometimes they're
Huh.
long moments.
And it's like, huh. And then you're in this place, and it's like, we have those moments too. And like the idea that we have the longing and discontent, I just know that's good news. That means that the life is trying to express deeper expression through me. It's trying to come out and show me more and give me more out of life. And as we grow this together, we make this journey together, as we learn, ideally, is we just want to bring people along and
Yeah.
and and attach people to the trailer and just say, hey, let's just continue to do this together, you guys, because ultimately we're all growing, and our
We're all
space doesn't
growing.
matter where we're at. If you're brand new or if we're been doing it for 20 years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? So as we come to
And
the end, what are your kind of, where's your head at? What do you think?
well, you know, it's just coming to my mind again. Like we all only have 24 hours a day, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at people and they're, you think they've, again, this is for you listening as well. If you're looking at someone and you're thinking like they've got amazing work-life harmony or they've got an amazing balance in their lives, how do they do that? Well, they do it just by being intentional with the hours that they have. And that really for me is the invitation. Like it's the one thing in life that like it doesn't matter where you were born or how much you have in your bank account or what role you're in. We all only have 24 hours a day. So what would it look like for you to have that experience that you would love of those 24 hours? And what would it look like if you felt you had if harmony is something you want,
Hmm.
what would that look like? And for some of you listening, it might be that I'd love to be busier, right? Maybe you're transitioning after retirement, or maybe you're transitioning after kids have left home or started to go into school and you've got more hours free in the day or whatever it is. But just like what would it look like for you to have
Hmm.
the kind of harmony and balance and experience that you would love? And just
Absolutely.
then get intentional about that and use your diary to schedule it and then just, small steps
Yep,
every day.
absolutely. I 100%. You said it so brilliantly. I'm not sure I can even add to that. That's so good. So way to concise that. I love that. What I would say is that I just want you to know that I know that balance is not BS. I know
Yeah.
that you can live a way more harmonious life because I live it, and I live it in a way that I'm open to growth. I'm open to the down. I'm open to having more chaos. Like it's kind of very much fluid. But when I really look back at my last number of years, 6, 7 years that I've been doing this, 8 years, I just know that I've just really felt this calmness in my life, and it feels very, very good. And so anybody can get there. It just takes one, an open mind to say, maybe I can do it differently. If you think
Mhm.
balance is BS, just ask a different question. Well, why do I think that? Where's that come from? What can I do to make different changes in my life? Ask those questions of yourself and sit with that question and see what the answers come to you. And that's what I have for my final thoughts. I just really grateful that you guys had time to take time and tune in here and listen to us again here this week. And any last moments there, we I appreciate that. What you had to say
Well,
there was great.
and I mean, just saying, Gary, for us, I know it's probably different in Alberta, but like it's really spring here, right? Where the flowers are up and the days are getting longer, and you can really feel the stretch in the evening, as we say around here. And just, to invite people to just lean into that energy, like it does get us going a bit
Mm,
after the winter, I think. And what, those extra hours of daylight, what would you love, in terms of whether that's time with your kids or your partner or getting in the garden or walking or doing whatever it is and just have
right.
fun. I
Yeah.
would say have some fun.
Well, I can look out the window and I can still see piles of snow. So we still have
I
lots of
know.
snow here, but ultimately the days are nicer. So they are getting longer and the sun does feel nice and it is melting. And so it won't be long before we
Yeah.
see some grass. So we're not far away from that.
Yeah.
As always, connect with us on social media at Maeve Langford, at Gary M. Benoit. Um, Anything coming up for you that you want people to know about before we sign off here today?
Well, I know I said there was a surprise coming or some information coming, and once again, I don't have it to hand to
Nope, all
show.
good.
But I'm going to reference it. So I created a card deck in the past. That was my big goal, my big achievement in
Nice.
2024, and it's on the topic of radical well-being. And I'm really excited, and I will be able to hold it up. It's being delivered tomorrow, so very, very exciting. And it's a beautiful piece of work, beautiful artwork. And, these ideas that we're sharing here, Gary, and the podcast, and like applying them all to health and well-being.
Sweet.
So,
That
yeah,
sounds
I'm so
fantastic. We're
excited
looking
to
forward
be
to that.
bringing
That's
that
going to
to
be
the
awesome.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
As for myself, created a new speakers tour. It's going to be launching either the fall or early next year. Where if you're in the Alberta area, we'll be doing a little tour of the three of us speakers and some music, and we'll be bringing the idea of these things to these different venues. It's called Ignite and Inspire, and we'll as things that develop, I'll let people know when we're going to be having it and where we're starting. And
Amazing.
if it's around the Edmonton areas, we'll start probably very close by Edmonton, somewhere here is the
Okay.
idea in the fall. So that's coming. We're working on that. So I'll keep you tuned to that.
Brilliant.
So, anyways, guys, thank you very much for tuning into Life Change Transformation. Appreciate y'all. Look forward to hearing from you. If you have any suggestions, please reach out, send the comments in, or send us an email, or kick us on social media and send me a message, or send me a message, or whatever it looks like for you guys. I think we're good.
See you for the next
Yeah.
one.
Thanks, guys.